Hi, and welcome to Gluta What? My name is Jeremy, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. In this webinar, we'll dive headfirst into the many medical articles and simplify years of knowledge and research into an easy-to-understand term, from its purposes in the body, such as its functions on the immune system, to its neutralizing effects on harmful free radicals. So I'd like to start tonight's presentation by thanking our sponsor, Nutraxis International, for giving us this opportunity to share this information with all of you tonight. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce you my special guest speaker, Robert Gauthier. He is the formula owner of a patent for the treatment of degenerative diseases related to a compromised immune system. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Jeremy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Robert, I do have a question. You say you're the formula owner of a patent for the treatment of degenerative diseases. How did that come about?
Simply stated, Jeremy, is some 16 years ago, I got a statistic that 15 million children were orphaned of AIDS in Africa. And I decided at the time to take on the task of finding a solution. Long story short, after 7 years of research, we have a patent on a therapy called VPROX. V stands for life, PROX for proximity to a quality of life. But for the listeners on the line tonight, the important part is that at the foundation of this therapy is a product called GSH complex, and that's the subject of a conversation we're going to have tonight.
Okay. Actually, before we begin, Robert, off-air, you did ask me a question that I thought was a pretty profound question and an important one that I would love to hear your answer told to the general public that's listening in tonight. You asked me, or you stated, so I can say, are we not all immune compromised in this day and age? So what's your answer on this?
Well, by definition, Jeremy, I would say that we're all immunocompromised for a very simple reason. We all live on the same planet, and I have a document in front of me from the United Nations stating, and it came out a few months ago, that all the air on this planet is considered carcinogen. Now, lo and behold, yesterday I got another statistic, and it's even more alarming because they say that, the World Health Organization is saying that red meat is considered carcinogen and processed meats are considered carcinogen. Now, inevitably, we're not going to stop eating our meats because that's a North American type of diet, but basically, if these two, the air and some of the foods that we eat are basically carcinogens, it is taking a toll on our immune system because the immune system has to fend for this toxicity, and then we can just imagine that the water that we drink must have some kind of toxic substance inevitably. So by definition, the fact that we live on this earth, we are immunocompromised, yes. And that's the reason why I told you we're all immunocompromised.
Yeah, I actually did see that report. It's a pretty big headline right now with the processed meats. It also makes me think, so much for saying taking a breath of fresh air. Actually, this brings up a little thing for me. For the purposes of this presentation, and really to help with my list, since it's starting to show a little bit, I'll be referring to glutathione in its medical acronym of GSH. So let's get on with the topics of discussion, shall we? So in today's presentation, we're going to be looking at the basics. So GSH 101. We'll also look at its first function in strengthening the immune functions, its role as the master antioxidant, a role as a full body detoxification. We'll also look at what happens if the GSH levels drop too low and its advantages to raising the glutathione levels. We'll also look at a couple of ways to boost your GSH levels. Now, I invite everyone to write down their questions. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Given time, we'll answer as many as we could. However, we will be able to give you guys a link to send us the questions afterwards. So let's get on with the show, shall we, Robert?
Yes, I'd like that very much.
Okay, so GSH 101, what exactly is GSH? Well, GSH is a naturally produced molecule that can be found in every single living organism on this planet. Essentially, it was discovered back in the 1800s. It's a delicate tripeptide molecule that is formed of three major amino acid precursors. It's cysteine, glutamate, and glycine. So
Yes,
now we're
but
going to look
I'd
at...
like to add something, Jeremy, just for the listeners. You say
Yep.
that it's documented since the 1800s, but actually there is evidence that 400 years before Jesus Christ, they were healing all sorts of ailments through the use of precursors for the production of glutathione. They did not know it at the time, but because of science, then we know that it was basically precursors for glutathione production. So it was actually known inadvertently 400 years before Jesus Christ.
You know, I really did not know that. See, even a host like me will learn something new with tonight's presentation. Thank you, Robert. Okay, so that we don't dwell too much on that, let's look at the immune functions, because time is of the essence here. So what does GSH do? Essentially what it does is that it upregulates the immune system and it downregulates the immune system. And studies have shown that GSH is actually responsible for this function on the immune system. But Robert, one thing that I don't know is how is that actually possible? How can you upregulate and downregulate at the same time?
Well, Jeremy, we have to make a mind shift, stop thinking pharmaceutical and start thinking holistically. And when people understand that the body has the intrinsic ability to regain its healthy function, then inevitably we have to understand that the use of GSH will upregulate the immune system when you are attacked by viral infection, and it has the ability to downregulate when you have an autoimmune hyperactivity such as lupus, asthma, allergies. It is an intrinsic function of holistic medicine that we don't really know about because we've been indoctrinated in thinking action-reaction. Let's go back a few years ago, H1N1. People wanted to have or to boost their immune system because that's a marketing tool. We say boost. Everybody wants to have a very active immune system. But if a person had, let's say, allergies, asthma, or some kind of immune hyperactive function, then the use of, let's say, oregano oil, which is known to boost the immune system, was actually being counterproductive in these cases. The beauty about GSH is that it has the ability to give the message for the body to balance itself. So we're talking here about the ability to rebalance the immune system. In doing so, we upregulate when it's needed and we downregulate in the same organism for a nice balanced immune system.
Well, said like that, that actually makes perfect sense. If you don't mind, I did find a little bit of extra tidbits in my research. I found that GSH is actually a contributing factor to the production of the T cells in the body. It does help in rebalancing the lymphoid cell functions, and it's actually one of the main aspects in boosting the B cell responses in the bloodstream. Do you have any extra information on those three topics that I just mentioned?
Well, let's go back to the immune system, and I'd like to say that most of what our immune system is being challenged with is environmental. And I'll just take something which is in North America anyways, because we have a lot of people from around the world listening, genetically modified organism. If we take today, 10, 15 years ago, we never talked about gluten intolerance,
No.
celiac disease. It just did not exist. I mean, you're young and you probably never heard the term before, but nowadays we have this, and what we know for a fact is that this is an environmental change. Now, because of the genetically modified wheat, they have many more chromosomes, and our system doesn't know how to handle it. So inevitably, our immune system is being challenged, and in doing so, we'll go back to the original statement that we made, and we're immunocompromised because we live on this planet. So this is just one more example, Jeremy, of how the environment is affecting our immune system.
No, that's true. In fact, I was just talking to my wife the other day in the sense that it's unbelievable how many more kids are always allergic to peanuts and pollen, and when we were kids it just didn't exist. So
No,
actually
exactly.
that's exactly. So let's go up to antioxidants. Not to cut things short, I would love to be able to talk a bit more about it, but I know that time is of the essence here. So GSH is categorized as the body's master antioxidant for its role of regulating and helping the functionalities of other antioxidants such as vitamin C and E, omega-3s, all the other antioxidants out there, including like well, none come to mind right now because I mentioned the more popular ones, but it does this by returning them to an active state, thus helping them to metabolize the free radicals. So how does this actually apply to the common person, Robert?
Well, I'll take one example, Jeremy, because obviously we can't go through the whole gamut, but let's say that now in North America, it's a statistic that most people don't know, there's 10 million women that suffer silently of what we call fibromyalgia. And lo and behold, if we were to ask someone, anyone on the street or anyone walking in the shopping center, are you tired? Are you fatigued? Do you have aches and pains? Are you depressed? Do you know that the statistic is 90% of these people would say, well, that describes me. Now, when we go back to fibromyalgia, basically we start with chronic fatigue, which not being taken care of because obviously, the pharmaceutical industry and the doctors have not identified the cause of fibromyalgia, so they basically told most of the women that it was in their heads, but it's not, it's actually physical. And then it degenerates to a burnout, and once the burnout is not being taken care of, then it goes into a full-fledged fibromyalgia. So it's just one example that by raising the antioxidant function, which is the master antioxidant function of the body, then we can fend off this disease and give them a quality of life. That's just one example. I don't have time to go into how it's an anti-aging at this stage, but basically that would be one very good, because obviously 10 million women is not to be overlooked, you understand? So that would be an example, Jeremy.
Well, that's a very good example. You mentioned anti-aging. We will get to that point later on in the presentation. So we'll go and just look at the next stage of GSH. It's detoxification effects. So GSH is also the body's answer to the metabolism of harmful toxins, as Robert mentioned earlier. It's also the answer to the metabolism of carcinogens, heavy metals, and various radiations that are out there, such as EMF and solar radiation. And it does this in a nutshell, just to go a little technical here, sorry, Robert, is through a chemical reaction with the molecules of GSH, the carcinogens, the heavy metals, the toxins, they're actually made inert and are evacuated from the body by natural means. And we won't go into the details of the natural means. But thinking about toxicity, what about the toxicity of the side effects of pharmaceutical products? I mean, they have all kinds of side effects, and one can only wonder what trace chemicals are left behind in the body. You're an expert at this, Robert. Can GSH also help with this?
Well, definitely, Jeremy, because we're talking about detoxification at the most profound level, which is intracellular level, and we're talking here for the benefit of on the line that not the use of pharmaceutical product, but the abuse of pharmaceutical product. And I want to be very clear here, is to my regret and to actually the Surgeon General of the United States at one point said we lost the war on superbugs because of the abuse of pharmaceutical products. So inevitably we've created a new problem, And what people don't know, but the layman person doesn't understand, is that we have receptor sites in our system. And when you take a pharmaceutical product, it is known to do good. Let's say I'll take an aspirin, for example. If you have a headache, then the aspirin will work on your headache, and it's recognized in your brain as being beneficial. But the other receptor sites in your body sees it as an antigen, meaning a foreign substance, just like what we talk about, with wheat intolerance and all of this toxicity that's in the meat and in the air. And at one point, your body needs to detoxify these antigens or foreign substances. And that's why we say that for people who have used pharmaceutical products all their life or abused the use of pharmaceutical products all their life, they can get a benefit just by using GSH as a detoxifying agent.
So that would, in a sense, make them work a little bit better because now we're essentially cleaning out the system.
Well, Jeremy, let's understand something. If you never change the oil in your car, and most people will agree on this one, inevitably at one point your engine's going to burn down. If we take another analogy, if you have a vacuum cleaner and you never change the bag in the vacuum cleaner, at one point, yet again, it will burn down. So your body's not any different, except your body has one ability that most people don't know. It can regenerate itself actually every 7 years. You're a new person. People don't know this, but everything has been regenerated. So if we accelerate that process, then we're giving you a better quality of life because we're going to give you a clean, mean machine. That's basically what GSH can do for the detoxifying effect of pharmaceutical products.
Wow, that actually helps. I think your analogies there, it does definitely help and paint a good picture, a visual picture to what's going on in our bodies. So let's look at, as you mentioned here, the damage is done. I mean, our bodies are over concentrated with toxins, so it's time to repair the body, so to speak. So GSH is the means by which the body will repair the cells and organs affected by an over-afflicted body. The first thing it does is actually through the process with free radicals. So in my research, it's actually the cysteine, which is one of the main components of GSH that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, that is what reacts to protect you from the free radicals. It does this by converting them into harmless compounds like water. Sorry. But Robert, for our listeners out there, what exactly is a free radical?
Well, to simplify the term free radical, Jeremy, I'm going to bring another analogy. When you breathe, you rust. Just like taking a nail, putting it outside, 3 days later you bring it inside, the nail has rusted. It is an oxidative effect of oxygen. So basically a free radical is a byproduct of this process. Now the beauty here is if you can understand that GSH will bind and will neutralize this effect, then inevitably you can understand that we can actually slow down the aging process, which we'll discuss later, but I want people to understand it's just basically rusting like a nail. Now, there are two ways that you can rust faster. The very first way is by doing exercise. So most people think that athletes are healthy. No, they're in shape, but the statistic is that the gold medalist, the average age for gold medalists to pass out is 54 years of age, when the average person who supposedly is in lesser physical well-being than they are will die, at women at 81 and 83, and men at 79. So the other way to accelerate this oxidative effect is by worrying. And in this day and age, I don't know too many people who don't worry. Our governments are giving them reasons to worry. Finances are reasons to worry. Children grown up are reasons to worry. And we're accelerating the aging process, and that's why we're not living at an older age with grace, and we have all sorts of ailments. So basically, it is by process of oxygen being burnt in your system.
Okay. Well, I've learned something new right there. I don't know about all the rest of you out there, but I've certainly learned something new. We'll look at the DNA. We'll just skim through this very quickly because I'm just looking at the time now. Um, so as to not go too deep, GSH is actually one of the main factors with DNA within the cell. It's also the means by which it counters the harmful mutant effects from radiation. Uh, just a quick question, Robert, can GSH help repair the DNA?
Well, the answer is absolutely yes. If you're asking me, the question is the documentation is there. You can go on PubMed, Medline, you can look at it, and it's all been documented. But let's push it one more step and go to cancerous cells. And obviously, cancerous cell is something that most people are very worried about because we've been, all of the advertising scaring us about, the dangers of, the ozone layer being depleted, so you can have like skin cancer, and you can have all sorts of cancers, and this is actually affecting your DNA. But just to give you an example, we took this lady that was an 87-year-old farmer, and she had skin cancer because obviously she'd been in the sun all her life working in the farm, and when she was young she was mixing all of these chemicals, which basically today is illegal, but not back then there were no laws, and all of this has affected her. She had arthritis, all sorts of ailments, and we basically showed her by the use of GSH topically and then internally that within 1 month we got rid of all of these cancerous cells on her skin. So what I want people to understand is there had to be a big work done inside the system at a cellular level to be able to give a physical well-being to the lady on the outer level, which is the skin repair that was done. And so yes, to answer your question, I took two questions in one. We do work on DNA damage, and we do work on basically cancerous cells.
Well, I think we can all relate to a story like that. Even my own father worked in the tobacco field, and now he has skin cancer as well. And I think at this day and age, everyone on the air right now, everyone that's listening in, we can all relate to this type of a story because we all know someone in our families nowadays that is attained by this degenerative disease. So we've mentioned it a few times, so let's get right into it. Aging. So GSH is a naturally produced in cell of every living organism on the planet. That's what I stated at the beginning of the presentation. But more importantly, for us in the human body, in our cells, the GSH levels begin to significantly drop around the age of 20. Hence why we start getting the signs of aging, the gray hair, the lack of energy, and low levels of GSH contribute to such illnesses as arteriosclerosis, and cataracts, to name a few. So, Robert, how does GSH actually help as an anti-aging agent?
Well, we've got to get graphic on this one, even though we are on a webinar. And according to science, we lose in a perfect environment about 3 million cells that are dying naturally every day. Now, in this day and age, because of technology, we also get about 10,000 oxidative stressors on our cells per second. So you can see that there's a war inside of our system, and basically we're losing cells and then we're reproducing cells. Now, GSH has been known to protect cancerous cells, protect damaged cells, but also it is known to accelerate the healthy cell proliferation. So if you can see that there's a war between the good guys and the bad guys, and then you can understand that we can slow down the dying cell process and we can accelerate the healthy cell process, then by definition and by mathematics, you can understand that we are an anti-aging product. And that's basically the function, the antioxidant function of the GSH that does this whole process. And we can actually prove it to people, because most women who use the product, after 1 or 2 weeks, they say, oh my God, my skin looks so much better. And they don't understand why, but it is actually slowing down the aging process. Further to this, most diseases of aging, we don't die of natural causes anymore. We die of complication from a compromised immune system. So obviously, if we're rebalancing the immune system, we're giving a better quality of life to the elderly, and we're giving them actually more extended lifespan by giving the process of the counter effect of oxidative stress. So yes, it is by definition an anti-aging agent.
Okay, so I guess we can both agree at that point then that having a high level of GSH is important for the body.
Look, according to science and according to a well-known doctor in North America, it's as important as air and water for sustaining life.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense actually. So let's say, simply put, a high level of GSH, and this I actually looked it up, and it was a really powerful statement. It's been clinically proven from over 120,000 medical articles to be beneficial for everyone. I mean, this is good for children to the elderly, from the infirm to the super athlete, as Robert mentioned before, and from anyone suffering from, age, asthma, cancer, autoimmune disorders, glaucoma, hepatitis, skin disorders. I mean, the list just keeps going on. So naturally, since this is a webinar, and you out there cannot answer this, but I'm pretty sure all of you out there are saying to yourself, much like I am right now, this is just too good to be true. I mean, how can one aspect do all of this? Robert, I'm sure that you've heard of this as well. So why is it that, in your opinion, we haven't heard of GSH before?
Well, listen, Jeremy, it is known in medicine, but they don't know how to work with it. And basically, health practitioners are bombarded with all sorts of information, and this is new mainstream information, I would say. But basically, it sounds too good to be true, because we're thinking like in the past with Big Pharma, action, reaction. Here we got to start thinking holistically, and the healing process is not done by the GSH. The GSH is just triggering the healing process for the body to do what it had the intrinsic ability and the desire to do since we were born, is to be disease-free. It's not true that because you're 55, you're supposed to have aches and pains. It's not true that because you're 55, you're supposed to have bad health, or that you're going to end up in a wheelchair when you retire. What we are designed to do is to be disease-free, and that's what GSH does. It triggers the ability to be in a state of balance, to have a quality of life, and that concept is new to mainstream medicine.
Okay. Well, that actually just confirms what I've always thought, and what I'm thinking a lot of you out there are thinking as well, that it's time that we change our way of thinking from action to reaction to prevention. So let's see the different ways on how we can raise one's GSH level. Well, the first way is through proper nutrition, lifestyle. That's exercise, and the other way is through supplementation. We have your glutathione precursors, you have your GSH injections, you have your GSH capsules. Now, to be as neutral as possible, and for the sake of this presentation, I prefer not to say my opinion on this, but Robert, what are your thoughts on which way is best?
Well, it's hard for me to be neutral, because obviously I have a vested interest, but let's say you're talking about proper nutrition and exercise. Well, we've addressed that when we talked about the meat and the processed meats and the air that we live in, and how exercise can be detrimental to basically the aging process. So obviously that would not be a good answer. Now, if we look at the Arab soil on the earth, has been depleted from most of its nutrients. So a fruit, a vegetable, hence spinach, has been documented to have 50 times less vitamins and minerals than 45 to 50 years ago. So that answers your question. Then if we look at injections, well, injection is a process where you need a doctor. You have a needle, and most people don't want to be injected. It is very, it works very well. Bit expensive, but they wouldn't be my choice. If we look at capsules, it's been documented that they're mostly destroyed in the intestinal tract, so you're not getting your money's worth. So my answer to you, Jeremy, is obviously, because I have a vested interest, is to find, glutathione precursor and have your body produce its own intracellular glutathione. So I would throw it back at you and say, well, is it better to supplement, or is it better to have your body get the substrates necessary and produce its own intracellular glutathione? And I believe that everybody listening on the line would say, well, it only makes sense that we'll have our body produce it. And the reason why I say that is that even after you've taken substrates for the production of intracellular glutathione, the message stays within the cells for a week and a half later, so you're getting benefit even when you're not being taken these substrates. So my answer is, look for the best substrates available, and obviously, because I am the owner of the company at Nutraxis International, I would say take a look at GSH complex.
Well, that's to answer your question as well. Without a doubt, for me, it would be supplementation as well. Not supplementation. Well, supplementation to give me the right substrate to produce my own intracellular glutathione, because when it's my own, it's even better. Well, thank you, Robert. I really enjoyed the time that we've had, and I know that we have reached the end of our presentation, and you certainly piqued the curiosity of a few of our viewers, since we have had quite a few questions for you. Unfortunately, we've taken a lot more time than expected. On the good front, it was more fun because we had a little bit of more interaction here and a bit more information than what I had originally thought for. So we'll only be able to answer a couple of the questions. For the rest of you that do wish to ask us questions, you can do so by contacting us at info@nutraxis.com. You'll find the link in the chat below, and I'll make sure to answer all of them afterwards. So one question that comes to mind, she says, I've seen reports that raising GSH is actually bad for the liver and kidneys. Is that true?
Actually, it's not. It's not. It's. I don't know where that report comes from, but the liver is where you have one of the major concentration of glutathione, and the lungs, and your kidney is also a detoxifying function for the body. So if we go back to the presentation we've just done, as getting rid of toxins, then it would be the opposite. It's actually very beneficial for the liver, for every the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, every one of your organs will benefit by elevating intracellular glutathione. So I believe that statement was erroneous in itself.
Okay, well, yeah, I've seen that report as well, and it's always good to have a bit of more clarification on that. We actually do have another question here, and I think it's a really good one. In fact, I'd like to know this answer as well. He asks, is there a test or clinical way of finding out one's GSH level?
Absolutely. In the early stages of our development as a company, we used to do business with a laboratory in Texas where they had a test, an assay. The company was called SpectraCell, still is called SpectraCell, and they can actually tell you your level of glutathione, intracellular glutathione. They can give you your biological age. They can give you all your deficiencies. But for the listeners, it's an expensive process, but it is an accurate process. So yes, you can actually tell your glutathione level, and it's important because remember we talked about it's the master antioxidant. Every other antioxidant known to man today cannot function if your glutathione levels are too low. So it's not a bad idea to know at what level you are, so as you know what kind of antioxidant you can supplement with and get a better bang for your bucks. So yeah, SpectraCell would be a good laboratory to do business with.
Oh, okay. Well, for the sake of this question, I'm guessing that later on I could ask you for maybe the link, and those that are interested in this type of a test, just give me a shout out as well at info@nutraxis.com, and I will send you the link to this company that can do the test for you. So, well, I hope that you've actually enjoyed this presentation. I think you can agree with me, Robert, that for our next webinar, I do believe it's on December the 2nd, Why don't we invite our panel of medical experts to come in and give us their clinical experience with the use of GSH in their clinics? What do you think of that?
I believe it would be beneficial as we would have different opinions from professionals of the health and wellness industry, doctors, surgeons, naturopath. I believe that our audience would welcome that venue.
Well, thank you, Robert. And of course, thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to speak with us. And of course, yes. Sorry, I think I cut you off, Robert.
No, it's all right. I believe that it's just the background noise. You can wrap it up.
Okay. Well, for all of you out there, thank you very much for participating. And again, a special thanks to Josiane for her technical expertise behind the scenes that actually helped make this webinar possible. And for all those who registered today, you will be receiving an email with details of today's webinar and a YouTube link to review this presentation at your own leisure. Finally, I'd like to again thank Nutraxis International for sponsoring this webinar today, and I hope that everybody has an excellent night tonight. Good night.